and welcome back. Well, today we're going to be going back in time, and I mean really back in time. Today I'm going to be talking to you about this camera right here. This is a Kodak 3A from about 1920, 1921, so it's over 100 years old. It's a little bit hard to gauge exactly what year cameras of this era were built. I've reviewed a few Kodak pamphlets and documents from that time, and it appears that this was made from about 1920 to about 1923, so it's definitely somewhere in that range. These are not super uncommon. They're not too hard to find. They are a very large camera, as you can see. This camera measures probably about 4 inches wide and maybe 10 inches long, and is quite sizable. And believe it or not, this uses a roll film. The roll film is size 122 and produces a negative that's about 3 1/4 inches by about 5 1/2 inches. So it's a huge negative for a roll film. Like most folding bellows cameras of its time, to release it, you first have to open the lens board, and there's a button right here on the side that releases the lens board. Then you open that board up fully until it clicks into place, and then you have to pull the lens standard out from the body, and with it, of course, comes the bellows. And then before you get all the way out, you want to determine what focus you're going to use and preset the focus with this focus setting right here. So you move this little lever to the focus position that you're interested in, and then pull the lens all the way out until it hits that stop. And then, in theory, you're in focus for that particular distance. Now, Kodak made this camera in a variety of different quality levels, like they did with most of their bellows cameras of that time. So this particular model is a mid-range model. It does have the f7.7 Kodak Anastigmat lens, which wasn't the worst lens that they had. It actually produces quite sharp pictures, and hopefully I'll be able to show you a few by the end of this video. This camera also has a couple of advanced features, including lens movements, both in the rise and lateral movements shift as well. So the rise is actuated with this dial right here, and then the shift is actuated by first releasing this tension lever and then manually shifting the lens laterally. Now, a couple other more minor features. Like most cameras of this era, the label flips out and turns into a little kickstand of sorts so that you can take pictures on a tabletop without the use of a tripod. This particular camera is so large, it also includes a little secondary kickstand right here so that you can do the same thing with a tabletop in landscape orientation. Now, the trick is, size 122 film has not been produced since 1971. So it is not easy to find film, and if you do find film, it's obviously quite old. I do have a couple rolls of 122, and I've used them before in Verichrome Pan, which seems to be quite robust. So I'm hoping to be able to shoot a few images with some of that 122 film and then show you the results by the end of this video. So I want to talk a little bit about 122 film and compare it to some other film sizes you may be familiar with. So this is, of course, 35mm film that we all are very familiar with. This is a roll of 120 film. Again, some of you may be familiar with this. 120 film is about 62 millimeters wide, 61.5 I think. But then compare that to 122 film. 122 film is positively gigantic. Here's 122 versus 120 roll. I believe 122 film is about 92 millimeters wide, so again, it's about 3 centimeters wider than 120, which itself is a wide film. So you end up with an enormous negative. It's nearly the same size in terms of square inches as 4x5 sheet film. It's a little bit longer and a little bit narrower. Okay, we're going to load the 3A. The 3A, the entire back comes off, which makes loading it pretty easy compared to some others. Now the 122 film is huge. It's about 3.5 inches wide. It's quite a bit wider than 120, so it's a humongous roll film. Now this roll expired in 1969. It's Verichrome Pan, which I've had good luck with in the past, but this particular roll doesn't look like it was stored very well, so I am a little bit suspicious about my ability to get some decent shots out of this, but we'll give it a shot. Okay, the first thing to do here is release the old spool. That will be the feed side, and then the old spool goes onto the take-up side. Then we'll put the film into the feed side, just like that. Carefully pull across. With this size film, you can see the load bars are already present. I can already see the arrows. So we're going to install the back. The back does only go on one way. I think it's this way. Snap it down into place. Make sure everything's locked in. Locked there, locked there. Okay, now the red window on this one has fallen out, but the backing paper is sufficient for low light. Okay, I can hear the film coming in. There's the arrow just went by. And if I keep going, there's the Verichrome Pan words. And number 1. Okay, we're up set for frame number 1.
Now there is one other interesting facet to shooting with the 3A that I wanted to mention, and that is that the camera was designed to also shoot plates. And the way that it accomplishes this is with the equipment that you see here in this image. So the entire normal back is removed from the camera and replaced with what's called a combination back that you can see sitting on the table here in this image. And that back has a plate holder that can slide into it, also shown here, and a ground glass system for focusing. I have shot this camera with the dry plate system using J-Lane dry plates. If you're not familiar with Jason Lane's dry plates and Pictoria Graphica, his company, I will leave a link in the description below. I'd highly encourage you to check him out. I had never shot plates before, so this was an adventure for me, but I was very pleased with the results. Here's one of the plates that I shot down in Astoria, Oregon.